All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who joined since the last announcement, because we have under 20 people on this meeting, I have given you all control of your own audio. So use it responsibly, as you've all learned to throughout this year. Looks like Anthony, you're our most recent to join, so heads up, you are unmuted. That's not common to be joining things unmuted, and I have done that to you, so I apologize. Of course, we have control, so if we hear a lot of background noise on your end, we may take the liberty of muting you. But two options for asking questions and having a conversation during this presentation are to use the chat box or to just take yourself on mute, pop open your video and share your question. We're all coming from the perspective. I knew a lot of the people who are going to be on the call today, so definitely hoping to have a little bit of discussion here. This webinar is being recorded and we will follow up and send the recording out to everyone as well as the links. So I am not I have a lot of links that I'm going to be sharing. I'm not going to be doing everything via PowerPoint today. I'm going to be going into websites and showing you things, and I will send you the links to all those websites outside of this. I may be able to multitask enough to drop the links into the chat box as we go, but if not, rest assured I'll get them out. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see that. What you should see now is a website, and now you should be seeing a PowerPoint. Griffin, can you stick something in the chat box confirming that you can see the PowerPoint? Or anyone? Perfect. All right, great. I'm going to stop my video because my screen's on the other side and I don't want you staring at the side of my face, and we'll go ahead and get going. So today's webinar is focused on GreenPro and LEAD. LEAD being Leadership in Energy, Engineering and Design, which is a certification program as well. On today's call, I'm going to do an overview of GreenPro, which is a service certification from QualityPro. The vast majority of the people who registered for this webinar were coming from a QualityPro accredited company or a company that's in the process, but I did just want to mention that context. And then I'm going to preview the service certification process for GreenPro, including both of the versions of GreenPro and the audit. And then I'm also going to do a LEAD overview and talk about the links between these two programs. If there's anything else you want out of this presentation, please feel free to stick it in the group chat. Griffin will be monitoring those, and I will be sure to answer everyone's questions. So here's the PowerPoint part of this presentation is the background. So a little bit of context. QualityPro is the company accreditation for the pest management industry. It is a voluntary credential that's maintained through a group of your colleagues, industry experts, and business leaders. It was created out of an effort of the National Pest Management Association. We're a separate entity, but literally under the same roof, doing accreditation and certification needs of the industry. So QualityPro is much more about business practices and kind of the operations side of things, how you hire people, how you train people, things like that. Once a company has earned QualityPro accreditation, or at the same time, they can go on to earn certifications for their services. And the 4 service certifications that we are currently running are QualityPro Schools, QualityPro Public Health, which you can earn for either rodent or mosquito services or both, and Food Safety, and then GreenPro. And today, of course, we're going to be laser focused on GreenPro. There is another certification option out there in our industry, and that would be for individuals. We have through the Entomological Society of America, a separate organization. There's the Associate Certified Entomologist Program. There's also the Board Certified Entomologist Program, Public Health Certified Entomologist Program. They've got a bunch of individual credentials specific to expertise in entomology. So that's kind of the big picture of credentialing options for our industry. Of course, there's also licensing, which a lot of states call certification, but the pest control applicator's license that's run from most of the time a Department of Agriculture, that's kind of a separate thing that's linked to health and safety and government requirements. So that's not one of these voluntary programs that we have control over. So moving on right down into GreenPro. So the history of this program was, of course, green is not a new concept to the industry. And at this point, it's been around as something that's influential in the consumer market and for your marketing departments for a really long time. I think a lot of the folks who are on the call, there was a time in our careers where green wasn't a focus, but for recent history, green is certainly something that we've all been talking about. So it's no surprise that the industry identified the need for some type of credentialing around what a green service is, because we have the opportunity here to define what green is for our industry. Because of course, as we know, if we don't define it, our customers do, and the way our customers often define green is a set of pesticides. So if you're using all botanical pesticides, then it's a green service, and that is not what our industry understands green to be. Integrated pest management is a closer link. So with GreenPro, what we strive to do is take control of the definition of green for the pest management industry and give companies the opportunity to certify their services that are following integrated pest management. So there was a Green Pest Control Summit in 2007, a task force was created, and the two state associations that had some sort of green certification programs already started were New England and California. So they were partners early on, and we merged all of the programs together. And in 2008, a service certification called QualityPro Green was launched, and you'll still hear that referenced in the industry. It has gone through a rebrand since then. So QualityPro Green is no longer out there, and there's still some QualityPro Green logos that are kind of out there, but neither of those are still in existence. We reference everything as GreenPro now. In 2009, a very influential other group called the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, expressed interest in partnering with NPMA and QualityPro on developing a certification program for the pest management industry that we could all agree on. So there was a wonderful team, including folks from NRDC and EPA, and we all came together, and that led to GreenPro. And that was, so we had a relaunch of the GreenPro program, and it was, they put out a model protocol, and any companies that services matched that model protocol that had been endorsed by all these organizations that was a GreenPro certified service. That program was in existence as the standalone option for GreenPro for many years, and it was audited, and we learned a lot about that program. And what we learned was we needed a little bit of an evolution that gave a little bit more flexibility, because companies have designed their own version of integrated pest management, and we needed to allow a little bit more flexibility still within the realm of IPM. So we took on that task of defining what IPM was again and developed GreenPro 2.0. And then in 2019, there was a logo rebrand. So that's kind of the big highlights in GreenPro's history. I'm going to dive in just a little bit into these. So GreenPro 1.0, the service prescribed by GreenPro 1.0 standard does not meet the needs of all locations and markets, which is why we moved forward and developed a 2.0 option. There's some confusion between GreenPro Company and GreenPro Service, so we've established a branding guide that I'm going to talk about that helps clarify that. And we just found that customers rarely asked for it, and companies rarely offered it. So that is why we launched GreenPro 2.0. Easier for companies to apply, allow proprietary service programs to be certified, build a brand that's useful to consumers, and maintain the integrity of the certification were the goals. So the process, which I'm going to bring us right into CertainMe, which is our certification tracking software, is that you apply, you receive a package of materials, getting started guide, and we're moving more and more online. So you get everything electronically, but we're still sending some physical things out in the mail. And then you go through CertainMe to work on your submission package, regardless of whether it's GreenPro 1.0 you're going for or 2.0, and I will clarify that even more once we get into CertainMe. And then separately in the NPMA testing site at npmatraining.org, you work on getting your sales and service employees who are going to perform your GreenPro certified service through the GreenPro exam. So you chip away on both of those things. They can be done at the same time because they are very different things. There's usually a team that deals more with SOPs and protocols that are working on the submission part. And you may have a training team or someone who's tasked with getting all of your folks through the testing and training piece of that. I'm not going to get too much in depth unless the discussion goes there with how to get your team all trained, but we actually have a resident expert on this line. A lot of our recorded session from Pest World went into how to roll out this new training program and get your whole team through a training through one of the QualityPro exams, and the lessons learned there could certainly apply to GreenPro. So in the follow-up that we send out with this webinar with the recording, we'll link to the recording of our Pest World session if you have any questions on how to do a rollout across your team to get everyone through the test. And then you become certified. So you're in the application process when you apply, and then the actual certification of your service happens once both those pieces are done. All the parts of your protocol are approved, and all of your folks who are going to perform or sell the service that has been approved get through the exam. At that point, that's kind of when we turn on the marketing side of things for you, send the branding guide, you get access to using the logo, there's some branding materials, we got patches and decals and all that stuff that helps you shout it from the rooftops that you offer a GreenPro certified service. This is going to become relevant with the lead piece as well, because what lead wants to know is that you offer a GreenPro certified service, and that's the service that's being performed at the lead certified building. And so the certificate that you receive for your certified service for your company is what you're going to furnish to your lead accounts. We can also provide a bid letter, whatever you need for proof for those lead APs for the lead projects. We can submit as long as your company is in that certification process. So some things to think about before I dive into the nitty-gritty of what we ask you to submit to get your service certified is think about, what does your service look like when there are no pests? A pure IPM service is not based on routine application of pesticides, but of course we're still servicing our customers. So what does your service look like when there are no pests? What does the service look like when there's a low level infestation? What does the service look like when there's a high level infestation? And is there anything that is prohibited through your service protocol? Because what we want to see is that you've developed a service protocol that adapts to what you find in your inspection and from the monitors that you have placed. And so, again, IPM has been around for a long time at this point, and integrated pest management is required for many folks to learn about in order to earn and maintain their applicator's license. So this isn't a new concept, but we have the certification program built to verify that your services do take into the nuance and isn't as such a spray and pray service. So just wanted to clear this up because this is another area where there has been a lot of confusion is the past. In the past is that if a PMP has passed the GreenPro exam at npmatesting.com, which You know, that's been the URL for all time. So even if they took it 11 years ago, it would still be at npmatesting.com. He or she has a credential valuable to a QualityPro certified company. Yes, that is true. If you get an employee that comes to you that has a certificate of completion for GreenPro or QualityPro Green, we will honor that, and they don't have to retest under your company. Now, if they took it more than 5 years ago, that testing data is going to be in our old system, so you have to email us and we'll send you a new certificate of completion. Or there are a lot of companies out there that decide that they will just have their folks retest in the new system just so that they get all of their records in the reports that we build for folks. If an individual has passed that GreenPro exam with a previous employer, can they just go out and perform and sell GreenPro certified service and start up a company and immediately advertise as a GreenPro certified company? No. So the certificate of completion from completing the GreenPro exam does not mean that the company is GreenPro certified. And the wording on the certificate is very clear about this. But if you are out there and networking with colleagues and you do come across this misunderstanding, or on a company's they're advertising on their website, if they are saying that they're GreenPro certified and having a picture of their certificate of completion, do alert us to this, because we do have resources that we send out related to GreenPro, and you know, the program's always evolving, and folks who are out there often just don't understand that what they earned with their employer was a certificate of completion for completing an exam, and that their company had to do more than just that to earn GreenPro certified service. So I'm going to pause here, take yourself off mute, or stick something in the chat box if you have any questions related to this. That there really is two components to being able to offer GreenPro certified service: the service piece and the employee testing piece, and you do need both. Okay, not seeing or hearing anything, so hopefully I've made it crystal clear. So once you've earned GreenPro, then of course you hook us up with your marketing department, and we're going to work with you. Specifically, Griffin, who's on the line here, is going to work with your marketing department and make sure you know how to shout it from the rooftops and equip your team to talk about GreenPro, your GreenPro service provider, and you can use the GreenPro logo on your trucks, on your website, everywhere. You just have to watch out that you're not saying anything that implies that all of the services you offer are GreenPro certified, because you are likely only going to be certifying a handful of your services, because you're going to have customers out there that want a quarterly spray and they don't want a GreenPro certified service, and that's fine. And we hope that you also have your GreenPro certified service and that people are willing to pay a little bit more for it because it is a certified service. So we realize that companies do offer different lines of service, and that is totally fine. Resources, so there's the website, of course, and then the place where all of the electronic resources that you get are housed and unlocked once you earn the service certification is qualityprotools.org. I believe, yep, that's the end of that. Death by PowerPoint. And now we're going to jump into CertainMe. And CertainMe is the new program. I know some of the folks who are on the line have been in CertainMe already, either through applying for QualityPro or in your renewal process. What we're logged in as right now is me in a test account that I have set up for myself and logged in. So I use this account, as you can see, kind of hard in demoing things for people. But what the overview of CertainMe is, every credential that your company is assigned is represented here on your left, and all of the steps to earning that credential or completing whatever phase you're in is represented by a little bubble. And when the bubble is filled in green, then you've done your part. When the bubble is filled in green with a checkbox, it means you've done your part and we have verified it on our end. So you can see for this webinar, I kind of launched for this company, this test company, GreenPro 1.0, GreenPro 2.0, what it looks like when you're in the renewal phase. So you've already earned it. And then also we're going to talk briefly about the GreenPro audit, which gets launched when your company is audited for QualityPro. We just do them all at once, and it's usually happening in the winter months. Next month's webinar, spoiler alert, is going to be focused on the audit, so that you may want to tune in for that as well. But what I've done for this user is, you can see everyone, once you get your CertainMe profile, is the profile fields. You can go in here and update things, and anything you put in here is going to auto-populate into forms that are within those credentials. So I just wanted to highlight that briefly. I'll give you an example of what that means in a moment. Anything that you upload into this system is stored within your digital wallet. And so if there is something that you have uploaded to prove that you're meeting any of these steps, it's going to be up there, which is really handy if you want to use something for a future audit or a future step. But let's start with GreenPro 1.0. So GreenPro 1.0 was that original version of GreenPro that we put out. It is the prescribed service protocol that the company must be following in order with every service that they sell as GreenPro. So service protocol, all services advertised and sold must follow the certified protocol. You can download the protocol right there. And what most companies are going to do here is download the model protocol. This is going to seem overly simple, but it really is what it is. Browse your computer for that file that you just downloaded and click continue and confirm. That's going to alert me on my end that you have uploaded that, and I'm going to need to verify that in fact you have acknowledged that your service protocol is the GreenPro 1.0 protocol. Employee testing is something that you are going to do in that npmatraining.org website. And this is just a step that, yes, I have done that. And we're, of course, on our end, on the verification side of things, going to go into our testing system and make sure that we've got records for your folks. That is this step. Anything that's a verification step is something that gets done behind the scenes. And then you fill out your applicant affidavit. So this is going through the details of what GreenPro is and making sure that you are in compliance or confirming. So in my profile field, I mentioned before, Allie's Bug Annihilators is the name of my test company. It changes from time to time when Griffin uses this account, and I always like to see what my company name is. But when you update things in your profile field, anywhere where we ask for that thing, you're not going to have to type it in again. That's where it pulled from. I'm going to put in my name. And then I go through and I check off and agree that I am meeting all of the standards that relate to GreenPro. I'm going to click continue. See, it gets all angry if you don't do it right. But what this really confirms is if our program does ever change, we want you to know about it. So we do ask that everybody read and acknowledge everything about the program, sign my name, and submit. Those of you who have been through GreenPro before in any of the previous versions will remember that there were a lot of PDFs, things that you had to physically sign and scan and email back to us and all of that jazz. CertainMe has replaced all of that for all of the certifications that QualityPro is now offering. So that's what that looks like for GreenPro 1.0. You can see that all of the circles are filled in green, meaning I, as Allie's Bug Annihilators, have done my part. And then on the back end, the I would be from QualityPro, Griffin or I would verify those things. Once everything was verified, then you would get a notification. And in your digital wallet here, you would be able to always access the current electronic version of your certificate. And that's the certificate that your lead clients or anyone who wants confirmation that your service is GreenPro certified is going to look for. Of course, you can always email us in for a request for these things. And each winter, usually either at the end of December or the beginning of January, we mail out a physical copy of your company's certificates for the services that you're currently offering and the GreenPro and the QualityPro certificate, because each year they have a new expiration date on them. Of course, that's what a certification program is, something you have to earn and something you have to maintain. So moving along to GreenPro 2.0, and it's the same logo for both. So there are two routes to earning GreenPro service certification. GreenPro 1.0, I find, is utilized a lot more for small to medium-sized companies that may not have their service protocols documented. And so they utilize that service protocol that we have already written up as a model as a way of learning how to perform this service and performing the service. GreenPro 2.0 is great if you've got your service protocol and you want to get it certified. And I am not going to drag you guys through every single step in this process, but you can see that CertainMe really spells it out for you. So please provide the names of the services being certified and whether it is a residential and/or commercial account. So what happens is you upload all of this information into CertainMe, and then there are two industry experts who don't work for pest control companies. We have them hired as consultants. They independently review your submission, and they know pest control. And so the fact that it's a residential service versus a commercial service versus a protocol that applies to all scenarios, that's significant for someone who's reviewing your service protocol. So that is something we ask for early on, which may answer a question that you may have had, which is whether you can get multiple services certified. The answer to that is yes. Then we ask for the service protocol itself. And what we want is a protocol that stipulates or specifies the following. And I do recommend that you look at this text and as closely as possible, make sure that all of these things are written into your service protocol somewhere. And it is perfectly fine to copy and paste things. I mean, we try and be very transparent, and the audit is in place in order to make sure you're doing what you say you will do. So these are things that we are looking for specifically within your submission package to make sure it's in compliance with the GreenPro standards and as such is true integrated pest management. Again, feel free to take yourself off mute or stick anything in the chat if you have any questions. Your scope of service is going to be the agreement that's given to your customer. So we all know that a lot of what makes or breaks a service protocol is whether or not, or an integrated pest management program, I should say, is whether or not the customer does their part. So you put in recommendations to stop leaving the door open that's right next to the trash can, and that'll help with the flies in your kitchen. You know, these recommendations that we leave over and over again, you want to put something in your service agreement that tells the customer explicitly that they have a role in pest management and that they need to heed that. And I think most of us have probably been in a scenario where we fired a customer because they just were never going to do their part or be happy with the results of your service. And so we do look at what expectations you're setting of your customers through that service agreement that they see and they sign. The quality assurance plan can be just a paragraph. Some of you will have, for some of your companies, this will be in more of an employee manual and apply to all of your services. So you may have a protocol that your folks know to follow, regardless of what service they're performing. So you've left the same comment for an account 3 times in a row, they've had 4 callbacks, that always means that you call a manager to come with you on the next service. That's just like one example. Some quality assurance plan that trains your technicians and explicitly tells your technicians what to do if the problem has not improved or resolved at the follow-up. And and again, it could come out of an employee manual, it could be written specific for the service. And we do realize that the majority of companies in the industry are small and might not have that tier of technician versus manager versus owner. I mean, you're probably wearing all three hats, but you should still have some escalation or quality assurance plan in place. And it might be that if the customer is not reading the comments or heeding the recommendations after X number of services, then I set up a meeting separately or give them a phone call and have a conversation to discuss expectations. Just something so that you're not in this spinning your wheels around getting the customer to do their part. All right, your service tickets. We all know that if it wasn't written down, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. And so service tickets are very important, and we are going to be reviewing the service ticket to make sure that there is the opportunity for routine client communication, conducive conditions, and ways to prevent pests. So something on your service ticket that delivers that information to your customers. Because again, when we get to the audit, it's looking through service tickets and understanding the service at that account and recreating the story of what happened at the account through the service tickets. For the GreenPro 1.0 system, there is a model service ticket and there is a model scope of service customer contract that you can use. You can of course use those things and apply it to your 2.0 service if you want, but most companies use handhelds and have their documentation and service ticket programs already established and don't really change those regardless of what the service is. And that's perfectly fine. You have a printout of what the service ticket looks like that the customer gets, or a screenshot of what it looks like if they get an automated email, a copy of that email. Whatever your service reporting looks like these days is what you want to upload. Marketing materials also come into play on setting your customers' expectations of your services. So we ask to see that. And then we're getting down to the ones we've already talked about. Employee testing, this is another one where you just write yes to confirm, and then we go on our end and verify, and you fill out an affidavit. You've already seen that, and then our verification steps are there. So that is the process for earning GreenPro service certifications for your proprietary services where you already have a service protocol written, you've already got your thing that you're doing. And everything now goes through CertainMe. You can see that there's 11 steps. I didn't complete any on the call here, but you saw how you would get that done. So you submit everything. We have 2, and they're randomly chosen from a pool. Again, they don't know about each other. They have a scoring matrix that they review everything that you've submitted, and they score everything, and anywhere that they couldn't find evidence of a standard being met, or they had some feedback, they get that all back to me. And if there are any areas where the 2 disagree, then I have them talk to each other and come to a consensus. What I come back to you with are recommendations from those assessors who you'll never really find out who it is, but I bring their recommendations back to you and with what you need to tweak or change, and then we work on resubmitting it, and then hopefully in that next round it gets certified. Occasionally folks submit stuff, and I'm hoping with CertainMe really breaking down making our expectations so clear, we're going to get a lot more companies that earns their service certification with what they submitted initially, but it usually goes back and forth a couple times, and that's perfectly fine. I would take what you have and submit it and see if it gets certified. Don't spend too much time poring over it and developing something completely new. Again, this program was designed to certify the services that you all are offering that you have designed with integrated pest management in mind. So, and the folks who are doing the review know IPM and they know the industry, and they're going to be able to interpret accordingly. So perfectly fine if it goes through a couple of rounds of review. You don't get dinged for that in any way. There isn't additional charges. It's $100 to apply for each service certification. So $100 for GreenPro. And that is the application fee. And then once you earn it, there's an annual $100 renewal. And that's it. There's no additional fees per person for testing or for having to resubmit or anything like that. So once you've earned your service certification, you'll be in the renewal phase. And all you need to do each year for this is fill out a renewal affidavit. So acknowledging that, yes, we have an audit. And first I need to accept the darn thing. Sorry about that. You're getting a true representation of exactly what it's like. So you're going to acknowledge that, yes, in fact, I remember QualityPro does audits and that might happen to my company. And then you fill out your affidavit. Looks very similar to the application affidavit. Hit continue, sign it off. And again, they're going to be, the little bubbles will fill up and need to be verified on our end. So each year, all you have to do for GreenPro is fill out that renewal affidavit. Of course, throughout the year, as you bring on new people that are going to be performing or selling your GreenPro certified service, you want to have them complete the GreenPro exam. And finally, I want to show you the audit. So for the audit, which I've referenced, you are going to they just added that language in for me. That's great. So this is one that you do want to go in order of the steps as they're presented to you. CertainMe doesn't restrict you from skipping around and completing steps and filling in those little bubbles with green. You can do it in whatever order you want. For the audit, I recommend that you start at the top and work your way down, because we're going to ask first of providing a list of GreenPro accounts or anonymous account numbers. If you don't want to send us the service addresses of your customers, that's perfectly fine. Just some anonymous list that you can, that links to your records so you know what we're talking about, that were serviced in the previous 12 months. And we're going to respond with a list of accounts you will need to supply the service documentation of. And it's not an overly burdensome number. It's going to be around 10 accounts, I believe it is. And let's see if it lets me into the second one. We're going to come back to you and with that list. We're also going to ask you to upload a sample of materials or scripts that mention GreenPro or the GreenPro logo is used. What we're looking for here is that you're advertising your GreenPro certified services in accordance with our brand guide, which you'll receive when you, I'll send it in the email that I use to follow up, and also you'd receive it when you earned the service certification. If you don't have any customers that have paid for and hired you to perform a GreenPro certified service, or you don't use the GreenPro logo in any marketing materials, that is perfectly fine. And you'll just write that down and let us know. Good question coming in the chat box. What if you don't have 10 accounts? That's perfectly fine. You're just going to put in the ones that you have. So it could be up to 10. We're not going to kick you out for not having 10 accounts. We are going to give you the list of accounts, and then we're going to have you upload service records for each of the 10 accounts selected by QualityPro for the 3 most recent services at each. So if you give us a list of 10 accounts, you're going to be submitting 30 service tickets total. And that is something the QualityPro board last year had a task force around how we audit all things QualityPro, and that's where that was established. Something that we could really tell the story and verify that you have the correct processes in place and that the service you're performing is meeting the standards. Enough service tickets that if there are any nuances, we can still, again, we're looking for process, not perfection on these things. And the 3 was felt that'll tell some story. You don't have to provide, 10 years worth of service tickets for each account. That would be overly burdensome. And then we are going to go in and look through those, make sure that the service that you're performing as documented in your service tickets are following your protocol that you had submitted and meeting the GreenPro standards. And again, we'll do a check on the testing side of the house and make sure your folks are completing the exam. Specifically within the audit, if there is the service technician's name that is on the service ticket should have a record of having completed the exam. That's what we're going to look for in the audit itself. Any questions about the audit? All right, any questions about GreenPro before I transition over to LEAD? Okay, here we go. So LEAD, just like the National Pest Management Association, has a sister organization called QualityPro that runs credentialing for the pest management industry. The U.S. Green Building Council is an association-like organization that has a certification organization that runs credentialing, and the credential they offer that we're going to be talking about today is called LEAD. So you can see here there are the credentials that they offer. They also have LEAD Green Associate, LEAD Associate Professional. They have a bunch of individual credentials within their credentialing program, but we're going to focus on LEAD, which is their certification program for buildings. So a building or a project can get LEED certified. And you can see over on the left-hand column here, and hopefully everyone is seeing my screen okay. I can zoom in a little bit here. Over on the right-hand side there, you can see that they have LEED for new buildings, new interiors, existing buildings and spaces, neighborhood and development, cities and communities, residential recertification is something we're going to go into, and retail. And there is a credit. So the way all of this works is there's a zillion different things you can do within a structure, within each of these project types to prove green. You know, we all know green is this big old catch-all of could be, you know, cars aren't allowed to idle outside, or your lights shut off automatically after 5 seconds when there's no motion detected in a building. It could be something about your water handling. LEED is a behemoth of a program. There are so many things about a building that fall in that green or influence how green a building is. But the way that they've reconciled this is they've got all of these different credits out there, and a building can earn points towards their LEED certification by doing any combination of things within different categories. And if they have implemented an integrated pest management program in the building, and it is available for all these different building types, then they get a point. And that point can help them earn and renew their LEED certification. And just like QualityPro has different versions, and over time we adapt and we upgrade and things like that, LEED does the same. So LEED is currently operating under LEED version 4.1. And 4.1 was released in 2018, I believe. And buildings have to recertify on a 3-year cycle. And when they recertify, they have to recertify to meet whatever the newest, the latest version is. So you probably have out there quite a few LEED version 4 buildings and also version 4.1 buildings. So today I wanted to show you both of those programs because the pest management and the way GreenPro is referenced between version 4 and version 4.1 did change. Again, take yourself off mute, stick something in the chat box if you have any questions as we go. So starting with version 4, this is, if you go into their credit library, it's all very searchable. Their website is vast and there's a ton there. But under version 4, this is what the credit was. It was under operations and maintenance. So their credits fall under different categories and you have to earn a certain number of points in each of the categories. And so under operation and maintenance, and this one I just pulled from existing buildings, but you could have earned it for schools and other ones as well. There were 2 points available under indoor environmental quality for integrated pest management. And there's two ways that a building could earn this, but it wasn't super clear. And that was the big problem and what we worked with USGBC to clarify. So they have all of this stuff that is basically USGBC telling our industry what IPM is. And then they stuck this on here, which we loved, but it wasn't super clear. The project meets the requirements if the IPM service is provided by a certified member in good standing of GreenPro, EcoWise, or Green Shield, or a program with equivalent IPM standards who complies with the program standards. This wasn't, there was just, it was really hard to get folks to commit. And there was some ambiguity between if a company was offering GreenPro certified service to a lead building, if that was enough, or if they also had to furnish documentation to the building from their pest control company that had all of this. So identification of an IPM team. That's not something we ask you to send us within GreenPro service certification. And this whole escalation of what types of chemicals to use when, that's not something we have within GreenPro. So for each pest, list all potential control methods considered and adopted in the lowest risk options, what defines low risk, and the least risk category is something that's very confusing. And this is definitely something to put a thumbtack in and remember when you're working with these LEED buildings. Is when LEED was initially launched, they referenced San Francisco's least hazardous materials list as kind of the gold standard. And if you are looking for a pesticide, it had to be on this list. And there's so many problems with that, two of which being the chemicals available in California aren't necessarily the same chemicals that are available in Texas. Another big problem is the chemicals that are available for use in San Francisco, which is located right next to the water, are not the same as the chemicals available in Nebraska and appropriate for use. So it was overly restrictive and just, green is not a list of chemicals. Green is an approach to pest management. And if you're doing inspection and sanitizing and exclusion and making these recommendations, all of these influence whether or not you even have to use pesticides. And there are certainly going to be scenarios where the least toxic option overall, or the option with the least environmental impact, is to use a higher risk, so to speak, a higher toxicity chemical, but use it to get rid of the problem quickly rather than having this persistent level infestation. So with our industry's definition of integrated pest management as defined by GreenPro, we give you that flexibility of knowing what chemicals you need to use when in order to minimize risk, understanding that risk is both toxicity and risk of exposure to people, to non-target organisms, and to the environment. So the concept of a pesticide list is usually only based on toxicity, doesn't take risk of exposure into account, and frankly are really hard to update because that space is always changing. So that is something that has gone away as LEED has learned more about our industry and developed new standards. But a lot of folks who were trained as LEED professionals were trained really early on, and they still talk about the San Francisco list, which you can't even find. And I'm curious to see here, and then I'm going to check the chat log because I see some things that have been coming in. Under resources for, again, this is version 4. Yeah, they do still have here. So the integrated pest management plan template is a Word doc that kind of guides you through setting up a team and all of this stuff. In version 4, they did still list out to PRI, the Pesticide Research Institute. So when the San Francisco list went away, and we have a great contact at San Francisco who's totally willing to get on camera and say, stop using my list, like it should not be used for this. In place of that, they referenced the Pesticide Research Institute, which had a subscription service that was an app, or you could go online and search a database of pesticides, and it categorized pesticides on its level of toxicity. But as of July 2020, they've stopped providing that service and are discontinuing that app. So there literally is nowhere to reference. And I believe when we get to 4.1, they no longer put that link in there. So these buildings that have relied on these lists for a long time, I think it's a good thing that they're getting weaned off of that because, again, as we know, green is not just a set of pesticides. Okay, now I'm looking at the chat here. What happens when someone not certified as GreenPro in an emergency following the same protocols? So it's not, certainly the protocols themselves are available for the industry. All the standards that QualityPro develops are available for the industry to see and reference. If there are companies out there who said, you know, we don't have it in our budget or in our priorities to earn the official certification and use the marketing materials and all that, but we want to do right, so we're going to follow the standards. That's perfectly fine, they're out there. But we are never going to furnish a certificate to a company saying they're offering a GreenPro certified service if they haven't gone through the process for GreenPro and QualityPro. The smaller your company, usually the more nimble you are if you've got kind of the bandwidth to focus on QualityPro. So we can turn around a company's application and get you certified pretty quickly. I think the record is within a week to be working on both QualityPro and GreenPro and to get it done. Again, that usually is the case only with a really small company that can get everyone through an exam very quickly, 2 or 3 employees, and meet the standards. But we've never made an exception where we say, oh, well, you know, they look good enough, we're just going to do them a favor and issue a certificate. You have to have earned the certification. And then another question about pesticides in Canada. Yeah, absolutely. That's an opposite frustration of the list. So a lot of companies in the US will look at that San Francisco list that someone may pull out of a drawer and say, we have so many more pesticides for that, and we even have, you know, more least toxic options that aren't even on that list. Or if someone waves that in front of you in Canada, you go back to them and say, actually, half those pesticides are illegal to use here. We're in Canada, and we have so few products. I will say that there aren't very many companies in Canada, and this is just something we've learned about the market that wasn't a surprise. Very few companies in Canada go for GreenPro just because the population, your customers, expect everything you do to be green because your government has already restricted your tools so significantly that you just don't have very much available to go wrong with in the customer's mind gone wrong. So we have found there's just that perception of, well, of course it's integrated pest management. Of course it's green because the industry is so heavily regulated. So Sam, I feel for you. I certainly have been up to Canada quite a bit and done a lot of presentations up there and spent a lot of time on the PMRA website and looking at your very limited list of products you have available. Any other questions there? Okay, so let's take a look at 4.1, which is really encouraging news. So under version 4.1, you can see that there's requirements. They still have this option of the in-house IPM program, but they make it very clear that there's an option 2 that you can use. And it's very crystal clear: use an IPM service for buildings and grounds within the project boundary that's certified and in good standing with GreenPro, EcoWise, Green Shield, or a local equivalent. So this makes it very clear, and you can bring it to your clients that they can earn that. And they did totally redo their point structure. So it's a 1 point still in indoor environmental quality that they can earn because of your GreenPro certified service. So this is what you're referencing. And again, I'll share the link in the recording of this with all of you. Now, because it's not our service certification, there's a lot of reasons why it's good to have a list. So they also reference EcoWise and Green Shield or a local equivalent. I don't know of any local equivalents. EcoWise, I take a peek at each year, and I haven't looked at it in about 12 months. I have to be honest. That is specific only to California and only a certain area of California, I believe, and it kind of goes in and out depending on whether it has staffing or not. Green Shield is an established program that is run out of the IPM Institute, much more expensive, much more strict, but I know the people who run that and I'm on perfectly good terms with them. So happy to send you guys more information and more websites and stuff on those. This just isn't a presentation about EcoWise or Green Shield. They're very different programs. I can say confidently GreenPro is the biggest one and the ones that knows our industry the best and is built for our industry by our industry. So the last place I wanted to bring you, and then I'll open it up for questions, but hopefully if anyone had any, they felt comfortable putting it in the chat. I will pop my video on so you can see the front of my face here. Is I wanted to show you the actual recertification guide, because I think this does clear up things, and it clears things up in understanding what the heck LEED is, which is this big behemoth. And it's only 3 pages, which is blissful. So if you are going to be submitting a proposal to a LEED certified building, or a customer is going, a customer is going for LEED certification, I encourage you to read this document. It's only 3 pages. It's going to give you some of the lingo, give you some of the background, and talk about what exactly they're looking for in terms of the number of points within different areas. All right, so again, I do recommend that you use that you read through this 3-page document. GreenPro, that 1 point. You can see they only need 20 points within indoor environmental quality performance, and so 1 is significant. And here is what you want to reference when you go to a LEED certified building. You'll see, is it a silver, a gold, or a platinum building? And that is what the levels map to. So again, I will attach this to the follow-up email. But that concludes what I wanted to show you with 1 whopping minute left. I am looking at the chat box. You should all have control of your audio if anyone has any questions. But wanted to just close by thanking you all for your interest. Hopefully this was helpful. I tried to dive into every little nook and cranny of GreenPro and its significance with LEED, and I'll be following up with the recording. The actual document will be attached, and I will send the actual links to all the things I clicked on and scrolled throughout today. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for your time, and I hope to work with you a lot in these winter months to get your services GreenPro certified. So have a wonderful day, everyone.